So hi everybody and welcome to the second meeting for D1a in the spring 2023 season. Just a couple of things I wanted to go through is, again, those of you who haven't booked your travel, please get your travel in as soon as possible because travel is not inexpensive at the moment. So the sooner you can book your flights, the better. And then the other thing I was going to say is that the coaches, again, like they do every season, are just now getting used to actually getting their videos to everyone. And some of the videos are very, very poor. So if you look at Jack's game, Santa Barbara against Cal, I don't know what happens in the video, but it seems like there's a twilight zone somewhere and everyone disappears every now and then. And so the other thing is, like, if the videos are very, very poor, we don't really expect you to code them. Just let us know. We can always get somebody else to present as well. And then the other thing is, if you have a really, really giant score, you don't necessarily have to put all the scoring in, right? If you know it's going to be a very, very big score, all you can do is just code the rest of the game. And if there's try scored or something like from advantage, or try that you wanted to add a clip and a comment, then you can put them in. But don't worry about coding like 25 tries, for one team. So with that said, I think we are actually going to start with Jack. You don't really have any stats because of the video, but we'll just hand it over to you and Jamie if Jamie's here, and you guys can just chat about the game.
Yeah. So, I mean, to give everyone an idea, and apologies, I didn't code this. It was 109-7. So I really sort of just focused on getting some ball in play and letting the guys play some rugby, which, in fairness to both teams, they had a good chance to do so, and it was pretty open. From my perspective, this was my first run around since probably June of last year. There were some cobwebs, so one of the clips is just a good example of, falling into old habits and, making sure we're thinking about things before they happen, and just sort of getting into different awareness mindsets when different parts of the game happen. So yeah, Richard, not too much to comment on outside of that. I'm not sure if Jamie had much of a chance to watch much, but pretty dominant Cal side on the day. But in fairness, Santa Barbara, they did fight the whole way.
Yeah, and I think it's the important message there from you is that if the game is one-sided, we have to go out there and still create a sort of level playing field for both teams, right? Because in the past, when you have one team that's dominant, and if you relax your refereeing a little bit, the team that's dominant is going to be able to cheat even more, right? And push the limits a bit more. So just make sure when we go out there in all of these games, as Jack just mentioned, got to be an even playing field for both teams, give them both an opportunity and still referee the game like it's a test match. And as far as, talking a bit about cobwebs and old habits, Marquise talked last week, just a reminder, you got to a line out where the defense didn't engage to form a wall. It's just a matter of being up to speed with all those things, we go through them so often, but just, there's a whole lot of, processes, and sometimes the toolbox does get a bit rusty. So just remember to watch the videos, actually read the emails that you get, and just stay up to speed with everything. But we'll hand it over to you. I don't know if Jamie wants to add anything.
Never.
Never? Should we just go to the clips then?
Yeah. I only put 4 clips in, so we should be able to get through these pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. Where should we start?
Just go from the top, Richard. That's fine.
Okay.
I think this is going to go in reverse order, but again, this is just an awareness piece around when you've got mismatched teams. From my standpoint, just some things to think about if you roll it through. Obviously a really well coached team, and they want quick ball, and they thrive off quick ball. So making sure we've got arriving players that arrive positively and actually clear a target. This one's probably a 50-50. You want to roll it through. So 2 guys that come around the corner here. And there's not really a target there that they hit. so just again, awareness piece when you've got kind of mismatched teams, you've got aggressive sort of well-coached forward packs. They're going to have a tendency to do those sorts of things. So that was just more an awareness picture for me. This is late in the game. I'm probably just inclined to play away from this. But if, for example, the Santa Barbara guy here, who's the tackler assist, actually wanted to get over that, you can sort of see he starts to pull out, not interested, and those guys aren't actually making any positive intent to clear a threat. They're just going to seal off.
Yeah. And I think the important message from that is that I'm not necessarily saying it's happened early in the game, but in a close game, what Jack said, at this point in the game, he wasn't going to make that specific call. But in a close game, if you've been managing the breakdown the whole time, you don't want to be calling a penalty right now that's going to change the outcome of the game. Yeah, right. Because of something that might have been 50-50 throughout the game. So if this happened very early in the game, it's an easy penalty to give, right? To set your standards. As you said, it was 5 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Great.
This one's quite similar. If you just roll through, Richard.
So this here is
on this one.
Twilight Zone section, right? Over
here. Am I going to disappear and come back in?
Oh, you didn't.
There was some times where it did. It's just so far away, it's hard to tell. This is again similar. So it's hard to make out there. There is a Santa Barbara player that he starts on the wrong side of the ruck, but he does make a good effort to get to the other side. And the first arriving Cal player just goes straight onto him on the ground without arms as well.
Yeah.
So you just dive straight on the player on the ground. Again, this is an awareness piece. This is late in the game. Last 10 minutes, I just sort of said, hey, you're smarter than that. Didn't really make there wasn't a huge amount of force in there for me. But again, this is a safety issue, but, a real sort of tackle cleanliness issue as well. We want clear pitches. That's a really easy one to get.
There's a technical term for that, which is cheap shot. Is that correct? I think that's in the law somewhere.
Yeah.
That's right.
Diving on a prone player, as I've heard it recently. So again, awareness piece. I think definitely chase a penalty here from a safety standpoint, but a good thing to think about again from a cleanliness standpoint.
Sure, and also just holding them to standards, right? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he knows exactly what he's doing there. So.
Yeah. And I mean, the player that gets taken out in that situation also gets annoyed,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
unnecessary. Yeah,
absolutely. All right, so this is a nice face palm from me. If you just roll through, Richard, this is just about scanning. So not a game with a huge amount of kicks, and at this point, you'd expect Cal to just spin it wide. And I just get trapped, and the guy that's behind me is probably about 10 meters offside. So, it's just more of a trigger situation, and just say, all right, if they're in the pocket, I need to manage the guys that are directly behind me, that are going to be the ones that are offside.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting because last week as well, what we noticed a lot of the referees is that you're running to where you think play is going to go. Instead of getting back to borderline, right?
Yeah.
And actually, when you're back to borderline, you can always arrive at the breakdown quicker, and everyone's quick enough to follow up on a kick, right?
For sure.
Just create more awareness.
Yeah.
Because what often happens now, so if they were spinning it wide, you also have all these people in front of you, right? So, and I think a lot of the referees here do a lot of sevens too. Like in sevens, you would definitely start moving backwards rather, right? So you'll be in a much better position to make that call. So you're talking about this play, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it just becomes a mess after that point. I mean, it's just a process thing.
Yeah.
Scan towards, rotate towards the 9 again. So you've seen everyone in that vicinity first of all. So I rotate the wrong way, which is just I'm blaming on cobwebs, but it's kind of inexcusable. And yeah, just manage those people directly in that vicinity. Just point at them. You can yell at them if you want.
So you actually want to rotate with the ball, right?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Take a few steps backwards, obviously. And he's with me at that point, so he's 10 meters offside, knows exactly what he's doing.
You got to give him credit because he was probably watching you
well
the
done
way.
to him. Exactly.
I hope he yelled all onside at you as he ran past you. That would
he might have given me a bum tap, Jamie. I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been good.
I think he probably said all onside just before the player played the ball. He probably said all onside. That's why not.
Yeah, this is a good one. Just remember to whenever there was I think for this the only thing I can add here is the trigger of a deep pass is a really good trigger as a referee to use. So when the pass goes back for a clearing kick, that is your trigger to make sure you check your inside shoulder. So, and that as soon as that kick goes up, look back across what is your inside shoulder at that point, because that's where all of the forwards from the previous breakdown will be wanting to move forward illegally.
Yeah.
So that deep pass back is always a great trigger for then check the inside shoulder. Okay, now we're good.
Absolutely.
So, question for both of you, because what we notice a lot with referees is that they sort of, I'm not saying you, Jack, but we notice with some of the referees, they sort of get into a pattern of movement, right? So they might be on the attacking line when the balls comes out of the breakdown, then they go drop through the D line on every single breakdown. Every time it's out, they're dropping through the D line. But sometimes you need to move back. I mean, you drop through the D line if they're passing the ball to people close to you, and you're going to get killed if you don't move, right? So, any tips that either of you want to give to the referees about how you're reading that game?
So I think in terms of the D line drop, that's like the best escape when you've got plays going to one side of the field, and most teams attack with a 1-3-3-1 system, right? So they'll have a pot of forwards on the inside that are basically going to attack the fly half channel. So I think when you're thinking about where do I need to be next to not get run over, in that case, Richard, it would be off those, when they go wide, and then the next phase after that, you're going to need to get out of the way if you're on the A line infield. And a game like this where it's high scoring, I was even sort of in the second half thinking, all right, maybe just work a little harder and get into jockey every time now, or mix it up and see what feels comfortable, particularly if you haven't had a lot of reps recently. But yeah, just in terms of patterns of movements, just get a feel for how the teams play, and I think getting a good understanding of like basic attacking patterns, particularly that pod system where they're going to have, that next phase after they go wide, they're definitely just going to hit the 10 channel with a forward pod is a good way to think about it, and be like, where do I need to be? Can I get out of the way? Can I get into jockey on the transition play center field now?
Yeah. And I also think that, if you have consistent movement and you sort of arrive at all the breakdowns at a good 45-degree angle, it normally gives you a really good idea of where play is going to go next. Whether you can go in or out. But I noticed that. So, for instance, I think Khalil at the end of last spring, he eventually arrived at the breakdown and he stood really close. So when they get that very flat ball with the forwards, the scrum off to the forwards, they would just pass it behind them. But you can also, when you come in deeper, you could also be outside of them, right? So you could just be a bit further away from the breakdown, depending on how well you read the breakdown. So many options.
Yeah.
They all have their pros and cons. So.
If it's a hotly contested breakdown, you probably want to get in, and if teams are gonna, and that comes with awareness of where teams have a crack at the breakdown, typically when they're under pressure. So if it's a little bit more open play, then stay a little bit further away. If it's a little bit in the red zone, then you probably want to be in a little bit tighter.
Excellent.
The last one is as exciting as it got from a foul play standpoint. I don't have any red cards, unfortunately. Again, the footage is pretty crappy, but we're just going to watch the the guy off the back of the line out here, the cow defender. So essentially, I'm in the way there too, but essentially at the last second, the ball carrier does change direction, and he just sort of starts on the shoulder, and the arm comes up around his head.
Okay.
So my main question just to the group is, we see a lot of these kind of seatbelt tackles. That's a little bit more higher force than a seatbelt tackle, I would think. But, I guess the knee-jerk reaction, and I was the same on the weekend, it's like, oh, it's just a penalty, he's just slipped up. But I think probably need to put a bit more emphasis on the defender bending at the hips here. I don't know if I would say that he's an upright tackler, and there's he's coming in at high speed, and I think that could be the determining factor between a penalty and a yellow card here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, Jamie memorizes the sort of protocol to follow. So what were your thoughts, Jamie?
Yeah, I think nothing to add to what Jack's already said. I agree. Because once something like this looks to me like indirect contact, but pretty high force coming from a distance, which would lead us to yellow card. And then we've got to look at mitigation and, the position of the tackler being fully upright. Well, you kind of leave yourself in a position where you kind of go, well, whose fault is this? And it's really the tackler's. So as far as the head contact protocol goes, I think that fits what Jack is saying. There's not a huge amount of mitigation there for a person first receiver off a line out, right? Being targeted for 20 meters.
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
No worries. That was what I could drag out of 109 to 7. So.
Yeah, no, that was great. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Jack, and thanks, Jamie.
Thanks, guys.
So before we get on to the next game, Will Nelson's got a clip up here that we're going to look at. And we'll sort of open it up to everybody. It's made its rounds around the world. So anyway, the decision at the end there was a yellow card. So let's just have a look at it in slow-mo. Thoughts? Anyone? Who's going to go?
Khalil.
Hey, Khalil.
I say, hello, Richard. I say the blue guy is lifted beyond the horizontal and he's not safely brought down to land on his knee hip area. It's like because of the blue guy's body being in the way. So I would treat it like a player bracing themselves and treat it and then go with a yellow card as Bill did and Mark said.
Yeah. Okay. Anyone else have anything in addition to that? No?
I was talking to Will actually, and apparently the touch judge or the AR recommended penalty only for what it's worth.
Oh, yeah.
This AR on the near side who is actively walking away while he's blowing the whistle?
Yeah, Mr. Baseball Hat.
But look at his positioning. He's right there.
Good looking jersey though. If we need a little bit of spice, I'm happy to say I think this one is definitely an orange yellow card, and if any referee gave this as a red card, I'd have no problem with that. I think that the aspects of mitigation here are the kind of things that should be argued in front of a judiciary, not things that should be argued in front of a ref, to my mind. And so, there's a little bit of a jump into the tackle by the ball carrier, which is kind of a mitigating factor as well. So, sorry, not a mitigating factor in terms of the decision, but potentially a mitigating factor in terms of judiciary. So I'm happy to lead with, I think if you gave a red card for this, I don't think anyone would say you made the wrong decision, but this is definitely in that range of high yellow to red.
Jamie, for the sake of discussion here, what sort of trigger words would you expect out of a referee should we be arriving at a red card here?
Well, the player's clearly been lifted over the horizontal. The player's not only been lifted over the horizontal, the player has been lifted vertical and been dropped with absolutely no care for their positioning. The issue is the landing point. I mean, if you keep the footage going, and this is why I say it's an orange red as opposed to an obvious straight red. Like if that player from that position just lands on their head, I hope everyone here we're not even having the conversation. It's just because they've ended up kind of landing on their back position that we would say a yellow is acceptable here. I think that the dangerous position that the player got put into would justify the additional action of the referee here. Like if you I'm talking about live, if you made that call, I don't think anyone would have a problem with it, is what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah, sure. No, that makes perfect sense. And I bring that up specifically because in my mind, this doesn't fit a standard picture. There's several ways that I'm anticipating these types of collisions to occur. And just knowing myself, I feel like I would lean into describing that more through descriptors rather than a script. I wouldn't look at that and say, tackler brought the ball carrier past horizontal, first point of contact, head to ground, whatever it may be. I wouldn't lead in that direction, which is why I was hoping to hear from you where your head was on that. So thank you for walking us through that.
Yeah, I'd also say that I don't think he did land on his head, but I think he would have landed on his head if he hadn't caught himself with his arms.
Right.
And
so
I don't think that the ball carrier's arms saving him from landing on his head takes the responsibility off the tackler.
Yeah,
right.
Good point. I do also want to raise the point that Ross has made in the chat, just so that we're really clear. Highly reckless equals no mitigation. I think that's absolutely true and something for us to think about, but I think he's actually referring to text from the head contact protocol, which is not what the situation is. So head contact protocol is different. This is a lifting tackle that has a different set of circumstances that determine yellow card to red card and whatever. And so we should just make sure we keep things in their right boxes. But I think the principle is a really good one to apply here.
Yes. So, and I agree with all of that. I think that I did speak to some siding commissioners and some referee managers around the world on this clip, just because it's so interesting, right? And it's exactly what the siding commissioner said. She said it either would be if the referee had given a red card, they would be fine with it, because the mitigating. I mean, the reason why the referee might not have given a red card is because he grabbed onto the player, so he landed on his feet. And we don't have a TMO, right? So you got to make these calls in real time. And we said before, if you're not 100% sure, you can't give a red card, you can give a yellow card, right? So, but the way that it happened here, the siding commissioner said exactly what Jamie said. It's like an orange, right? It's between a yellow and a red, somewhere there. If this was only a penalty, the player would definitely go for CCW. They would, it probably wouldn't be able to go through as a siding commissioner report for a hearing. So, and because the referee had given a yellow card, the siding commissioner won't push for more. So, because it's sort of an orange, right? It's not a definite red. So that's where it is. But I think that the decision works on the day, right? It's just that a couple of things to take into consideration too. And I mean, we just talked again about sort of running lines again, just sort of being a little bit further back so you can get a different angle here, because I mean, even if you're a little bit further back, you can also see obstruction and those kind of things if that happens in the back line. So, because the way you get there's a lot of people directly in line with the referee. And what actually happens here is that the player stops, the tackler stops, right? So the tackler stops, plants themselves, not like they're driving back, they just lift them up. So the tackler is not doing anything to help the situation.
Yeah, and just one more note on that too. I think this is going to be a very kind of unique, rare situation. In talking with the coach after the game, that Santa Cruz player who got lifted up is actually a pretty talented rock climber, and the coach thought that the only reason he was able to not land on his head is because of those experiences.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think I'd just keep that in mind, that I think that's a pretty unique situation, and to always kind of have a plan, what you're going to do and how to manage that out too, because again, we can all kind of joke about the AR, but I think the reason why I got that right was, again, kind of watching where he landed, kind of feeling the vibe of like the players and going on from there, which I think is a pretty unsatisfactory answer in terms of like process wise, but just having that again planned is good.
Absolutely. Thanks, Will. Anyone else? Right. The last game. Austin.
All right.
Yeah. Cal State Long Beach in Arizona.
Yeah. So coming off Jack's 109-7, we have a 74-7 game here. But no, it was a good one. Arizona obviously has been in D1a for a while. Cal State Long Beach, this is their first year moving up to it. So it's a big step up in competition for them. This was a preseason game for both of these teams. So they did a lot of substitutions, particularly in the second half. Around minute 60, we had complete front row swap overs and things like that. So it definitely added some challenges, almost refereeing two different teams, it seemed. But we'll get into that a little bit more with the clips. On the whole, definitely some dominance by Arizona, particularly in the scrums. We had a lot of challenges there, and that's one of the sets of the clips we'll go through. But pretty good game on the day. Mark, you want to add anything?
Really decent game. Scrums again were a challenge, and then there wasn't really a lot to give you. There was just that a little bit of a trend in the second half of all the end goal, which we will talk about. So pretty easy match to code, and pretty good job, Austin. I mean, your rapport with players is great, and it's good to see that your physical profile is looking great. Thanks, awesome.
Okay, where should we start?
I'm happy to go with the scrums. So the numbered clips 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So this is the second scrum of the game. The first one, relatively uneventful, but this is where things start to get a little more interesting. Just watch it first and then I'll talk. So I guess first thing to note is there's a lot of movement on the set, which is a bit of a trend in this game. we'll highlight it a little bit more in the next clip too. But Arizona's doing a bit of that hit and chase behavior, right? When they hit, they take a little couple of steps to try and recover, and then they go from there. But the point I was getting from this clip is they're also very clearly the stronger team, it would seem. And they are going to put on a big shove on the opposition put in. And this happened a number of times during the match. If you look back at the stats, there are 3 scrum penalties, all of which are on Long Beach put-ins, and 2 Arizona. So early in the game, we're in, 7th minute, something like that. Clear that Arizona is going to be the powerful one on the day.
I just have a question. Is everyone happy with the way that the black team is going forward?
Do they really need the 8 doing the slingshot when they come together?
I'm just wondering, do you think that they're just going this way around? That they're just all watching that way? Or is it just because the scrum's collapsing in the front here? Something to think about.
Looks like a straight push, Richard.
Okay.
Yeah, at least the first step.
Yeah.
Pretty well straight back.
I think they start to turn. I think
this would be a good one to leave the audio on, if you don't mind.
So you said leave the audio on?
Yeah. Just as a trigger for referees. I didn't pick up on it well enough, but especially when the team's making it obvious for you and calling it out for the hit and chase. With that hit 2-3, if you're having a lot of instability on the scrum, in the set, really pay attention to that and key in on it, because it created a bunch of instability that if I had eliminated that behavior early in the game, might have had a more successful day at the scrum.
It's very strange that the scrum is, because normally when the scrum is turning a little, like 15 degrees or so in the front there, it might be the defense doing it, but it seems like Arizona is doing it. You see, I mean, the scrum's not even straight there, right?
Yeah. We had the Long Beach props struggled quite a bit on the day. The first couple of scrums, there was a lot of bind fixing and things even pre-engage. Really just trying to get a fair crack at it. So now here we are this is probably the early in the second half. Again, Arizona's been dominant on the day. The point here is what I probably should have done is held them to a higher standard, right? They've been the stronger team on the day, been kind of pushing it on the set. So with regards to an early push, really just kind of hold a standard here and just hit them with a quick free kick for the early push.
Yeah. I think, just looking at that very first scrum, when you see that sort of dominance there, I think what you might do going into the next scrum is to go to that number 1, to the Lucid prop from Arizona, and go like, I want you to be 100% accurate. I mean, they've got to be binding properly. They've got to have their body straight. They've got to make sure they have space for the tight head so that the tight head doesn't automatically go at an angle. Because to me, it looks like they were sort of on the edge all the time. And if you just get on the case early on and go like, you have to be 100% perfect. And if you're not 100% perfect, I'm going to penalize you. So at least you know that you're keeping that dominant player in check all the time, that if they're going to dominate, it's got to be 100% legal all the way, And so I'm just concerned about that first scrum, because, if a Lucid wants it to make it a little bit easier for themselves, they can, they can just keep pushing the limits all the time. So it's just something to consider.
Mm-hmm. And then for this last one, this is a bit of an interesting one, and I open it up for the group discussion. Gold has swapped out their entire front row, and the blue team is mostly intact. There's some substitutions, but it's when you've got a dominant team in blue and the first scrum with a whole new front row from a team that's been getting dominated the whole day. What's your approach to maintain some opportunity at success here? I have some things to say, but if anyone wants to chime in with their strategy, go for
it. Do you want to go first?
I see it. I see a hand from Tim.
Okay, go
chime in.
No, Austin, this is an interesting dilemma, right? You know, how do you deal with a team that's totally dominant right off the start of a game? And, you know, like Richard said, how do you set the standard for one team and not the other? And then also weigh out all the safety issues. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that more because I think it's really interesting. I think it's something that we all deal with, especially in D1a, you know, when you have one team that's clearly dominant and one team that's struggling. So.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of what I would do in hindsight, I guess, is to really kind of emphasize the importance of maintaining that standard, right? Keep the pressure on that dominant team to be 100% accurate. You know, obviously have a word with the oncoming replacements and make sure that they're going to be maintain the standard we've set and maintain throughout the game, but really keep that pressure on the dominant team to be perfect.
Yeah, you can always say
Austin,
to them, "This comes." Sorry, carry on.
Oh, sorry, Austin. This is Tim again. Do you ever change your cadence to either slow down or speed it up to prevent that, you know, kind of 1, 2, 3 push kind of thing? So it takes a little bit away from the dominant team to change the cadence of your cadence so that they can't time things as well. Is that a strategy that's useful?
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't necessarily have a set timing in my cadence, right? It's based on what I see in that particular scrum, but that is something that Mark and I talked about, which is, you know, stretching out that timing a bit more, particularly between the bind and set, just to really make them hold it, to make sure that you're getting that stability absolutely perfect before we're moving forward.
Yeah, one of the things Austin talked about is like just taking one quick breath in before you say set. Like just be conscious and deliberate, and just go right when you're about to say set. Just go, hang on a second, and then say set. And it doesn't cost you anything. It doesn't burn out the player's thighs, but it just increases a little bit more stability. And I think it's a really good coaching point. And then, like when you do have a dominant team, right? And even if they're like clearly legally dominant, which maybe this Lucid isn't, you can just kind of like pull that Lucid and say, look, you got him. Just make sure you're legal, and then you just focus on that player.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I have a little I can't make you scrum legal today. I could just make you wish you scrummed legal today.
Yes, and the other thing you can say to players when they come on the field, new front row players, you can go, the scrum's been absolutely amazing today. Let's keep them that way. You know, just say something to them so that they're aware, that you're aware of, that they just come on the field, right?
If they do have a nice legal scrum, you're like, that's the standard. Thank you for that.
Yep.
And just
absolutely.
That's what correct.
And the one takeaway from this whole discussion is that you have to referee every scrum. So even if the ball comes out, you have to know what happened, and if there's something that might be slightly illegal, and how you're going to manage it at the next scrum. You know, just always keep working at the scrum, because it can change in a second, and the dominant team can change in a second, and you know, players can go from completely legal to illegal in a split second too. So make sure you referee every scrum, and you have a plan throughout the game. You know, especially Absolutely. As you build your toolbox. Great, those are great discussion. Are those are all your clips, Austin?
Yeah, Mark has another series from the game.
Okay. First, second. Okay, so we start here, Mark. First.
Yeah. So you could just play clip 1 and 2, and then we'll notice the trend and the timing of the game.
I'm just going to play it again, okay?
There was a trend of the 9 recognizing that there's opportunities to quick tap the wall. Austin reset him the first time.
And the second. The first and second. I stopped him twice before this.
So now like a proper wise scrum half knows the standard, and he's actually started taking them correctly behind the mark and then properly kicked. So there was, if you like, maybe we should have let that clip a little bit, but that scrum half quick taps the penalty and then goes, and then this leads to the second play. So another legal quick tap penalty, and then it leads to the third clip right after that. And we'll just let this play out, and then this is for a discussion of everyone's tips and tricks.
So what happened there after the tap?
I probably should.
The defenders tackle him.
Yeah, right away. Like was the not 10? Like this is mostly reserve players from Long Beach State or whatever the team is.
Yeah,
it was like a not 10, and immediately tackle of the 9, which then led to a little aggro from each team, and then led to a yellow card against
Gold.
Who tackled the 9 immediately. So if we just play the last clip, I guess.
That shows the aftermath. It's the same. It's a continuation of the same play.
Okay.
Yes, that prop doesn't retreat at all. And there's actually another player. The yellow card actually goes against a different player. There's a second player that runs in with no arms and just charges into that tackle. He's the one that got the yellow card. But take your pick, right? You can give it to either one. I just felt the dangerous foul play was more worthy of it.
So my question to the group, and this is the point of this discussion, is: so you have a as a referee, you recognize the fact that this blue team is going quickly and actually doing it legally, kicking the ball out of their hands, not tapping to the foot, going behind the mark or near the mark. What tools in your toolbox as referees do you have to kind of prevent this happening? So
anyone?
Yeah, who's got tips and tricks to create time and space for the blue team?
It would be. Did you say the first one? I don't think we saw it in the clip, but the first one was a not back 10 when he quick tapped it.
Well, the first one was a legal tap, and then they retreat, and then they subsequently have a breakdown, and then there's another penalty because obviously goals is under pressure. It's near their goal line, so it's like a tackler breakdown penalty, slow to roll away, and then another tackler penalty, slow to roll away. But right after the second one, there's a not 10, and then this shoulder charge kind of.
Yeah, maybe after the third penalty, like inside the 22, you would double tap the whistle, call captains in, and slow it down. The problem with that is maybe you're taking away a possible scoring opportunity from
the dark team because they want to go quick, but at the same time, there's been 3 penalties inside the 22 where there needs to be a warning. Next thing's going to be a yellow card, and in a way, you're trying to help out that brand new team of all second string substitutes at the end of the game.
Yeah, and
go ahead, Austin.
No, I was going to say, I agree with that, and particularly in the context of this game where it's probably 50-7 at this point. If we're slowing blue down a little bit and not giving them that advantage of taking it quick, it's probably not taking a whole lot away from them in this particular match.
The more important is structure and safety as opposed to like the 9 wanting to get all the glory, and then you just quickly recognize and double tap the whistle, and then just either admonish the team or caution the team if they're on a trend of team repetitive penalties. That's a great tip. Does anyone have anything else they might use?
Yeah, Mark, this is Tim Liu again. Being a cheeky 9, I think you recognize sometimes the referee, the timing of the whistle. So if the ball's sitting at the base of the ruck and it's just there, and then you as the referee call the penalty and give him a full arm, the ball is just stable, sitting there, you tap, you're basically running at players moving backwards. So to prevent that, the things that I do is I just play a longer advantage. I wait till that 9 has either passed the ball away or the ball's kind of stuck in the ruck. If the ball's right there and you have a good 9, he's just going to tap and just walk into the try zone. So I tend to kind of play a longer advantage and not let them get that timing down, that the ball's just right there and they can quick tap. So that's one thing that I do if I know the 9s are good and they're trying to do that to me.
And that's interesting. Like kind of tweak your advantage a little bit to create an opportunity.
You play a little longer, so it's just not as easy for the 9 to just. A lot of times the 9 just waiting for you to blow the whistle. They tap right at your feet, and there's it's a try basically on the other team. So just varying your timing a little bit so that the 9 either passes it out or he's not in a great position to tap as quickly.
Yeah. Kind of going along the lines of like the sequence of the penalties and whatnot, is there anything anyone would do as far as like how you signal, what you say, along the lines of like, obviously we always want to see whistle signal talk, right? But is there anything you could kind of do to create space during that sequence?
Soon as the penalty whistle's gone, my focus as a referee is on the players who are not back 10 and pushing them. After I've given I give the primary, but I'm not going to worry about secondary and explanation until after the quick tap's no longer on the table.
Yeah, that's exactly what I talked about a little bit, is like recognizing that this 9 does go quick almost every time. And if that ball is available, those are great points, Tim, about the availability. But then just changing up your communication method of a little bit, like whistle, back 10 guys, create space for them, and then here's your mark, tackler not rolling or whatever. It's just kind of buy yourself 2 or 3 seconds, right? Hopefully you can like whistle, signal, and then push them back, and then point out there's the mark. I mean, the good thing about Austin is he doesn't really stand on the mark, so and he doesn't walk towards it. So that's always a great thing. I encourage referees to not like walk towards the mark, because then 9s think that they can go right away. And there's a little bit of a trick too. Like if you back away from it, sometimes 9s run to you, and then you can go, no, the mark's over there. And then while he's going over to the mark, you can create that space. So it's just
artificially change the mark, right? You can just say, "Oh, it's over there," and then they have to go to that mark, or they have to go back a meter or 2.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I think the most important part is have the awareness of what this team's doing, and then you have to maybe be consciously like change like your speech or your communication to create that space, especially if you have a really good 9 and a not so informed team, a knowledgeable team about the laws on Long Beach State. I don't want to get in any trouble with the coaches or anything, but like, and just kind of create that space for them while still allowing the facilitator the quick tap.
I think that everybody, I mean, that's a lot of good information and a lot to absorb, but I think that much like the referees, the players are also a little bit rusty, right? It's just starting in the beginning of the season. But it's interesting though, because we've talked about, I'm sure every single one of us, we've been out in the game refereeing, and it feels like every penalty is a quick tap, right? Every penalty is just a quick tap, it's a quick tap, it's a quick tap. You just feel like you're running yourself ragged in a rugby league match. And I think it's important what Tim said about the timing, because if the ball's available, there might be an opportunity to play advantage. And if the ball's not available, you can award the penalty because it's going to take a while for the ball to come out anyway. And I think if you are in a situation where, don't go and warn players when you don't want to warn them. Don't go and warn them early because you're trying to stop a quick tap. But sometimes when you get into these situations, if you raise your awareness that a penalty is going to come now and they are probably going to take it quickly and I'm ready, and we talked about shifting your focus of your communication, right? So you blow the penalty and then you're pushing everybody back. Really, really important. But all of this goes back again to what we talked about in the beginning, the very first meeting when we were talking about prepping for the season, when you do your pre-match with your teams and the number nines, that you say to them, if there's a penalty or free kick, the mark is not where you're standing. The mark is where the infringement occurred. And if you're unsure where that is, ask me and I'll point to the mark, right? So that already cuts down quite a few quick taps because, the players are sort of running around they always run at you. And if you keep allowing them to do that, then there's going to be a lot of quick taps too. But in this situation, we had the one penalty, then we had the next one. And what I like, what Austin did next is he double whistled and stopped the game, separated the players, gave the yellow card, and carried on with the game. That double whistle always means that it's not going to be a quick tap, right? The game is stopped. So he didn't blow a penalty and then double whistle. He just double whistle, stopped the game. Talked to players, gave the yellow card, and then went back and gave the penalty. So that's a really good process. A lot of great information, and I think it's, as a referee, there's a lot to think about every single second on the field, and I think these meetings are great at just getting a whole lot of different perspectives because you can use different approaches to similar situations depending on how you're refereeing the game, So the one thing that I just want everyone to focus on is, I know that when we talk about empathy, it's more about empathy for the game and what's going on with players on the field, rather than having sympathy for someone who might be 20 or 30 or 40 points down, right? We don't want you to do that. We still want you to referee the game in a way that players have to be legal, But just always focus on that. You go out there and you referee the game like it's a test match. Doesn't matter who's playing. You respect all the players equally. And, when you come off the field, even if there's a big score, what you want both teams to come out and feel that they still got a fair shot from you. So that was excellent. Thanks, Mark, and thanks, Austin, and everyone else's contribution. Yeah. So going to wrap up. Again, we just talked about, obviously, everyone's a little bit rusty. Just keep working on it. Also, watch some rugby as you prepare for the game, because you just watch some rugby. And when you're watching games, you just sort of get in that mindset. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen the next? So that you can raise your contextual refereeing and your awareness of what you think is going to happen next and what the decision should be, so that when you're out on the field, you're ready to make the right decision at the right time in the game. We talked about positioning. Again, make sure you work to get ball in line, try and arrive at the breakdown in a consistent way, and it allows you to read the game better, to know where the game is going to go next. Talked about foul play. Just again, just go through the guidelines and look at the process. and how decisions are made. That was an excellent clip we had with that lifting tackle. As we said, it ended up being sort of an orange card, right? But it could well have been just a straight red if the player didn't grab onto the tackler. And then we talk about the scrum, referee every single scrum. Even if the ball's coming out of the scrum, you still got to take something away from it. Even if you take away from it that everything is great, right? You can go back to the next scrum and tell the players that the last scrum was great. Let's keep it like that. Just make sure that you're working the scrum all the way through. And then of course I won't go through this last discussion about the penalty and the timing of your decisions on the mark and how you manage players, but there's a lot of information that's very good that can help you improve your refereeing. So let's just take those things onto the field this weekend. And thanks to everyone who presented and everyone who participated and everybody who's on this call. I will send out some notes and a link to the video and to the clips, and have a great upcoming weekend of rugby, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night, Richard.
Good night. Thank you.
Thanks.